The She-Devil, written by Barsoomisreal. It started soft and low, like faint noise you may hear in the distance on a windy day. It slowly rose in volume, sounding both mournful and desperate at the same time, rising in a wave of what can only be described as pure, agonizing horror and pain. Feck glanced over at his warmate T'Chall. He said nothing, but his eyes said it all. How was this terrible noise coming from so small a creature? Feck gripped his blaster tighter, his clawed hand shaking at the sound of the small, frail creature in front of him was making. The Cryolan race was not known for their restraint or compassion. They never asked nor gave quarter in battle, and this was battle. These new humans, as they called themselves, travelled too far into this space, and so they would be eradicated from any planet the Cryolians felt they had claim to. Including this one, where only a couple 100 humans resided. Farmers. Families. Following their orders, they had assaulted a small farmhouse where a human family had tried to make a life and home. They eliminated all but one of the humans, a lone female, who right now was cradling a smaller version of herself, rocking back and forth, making that horrid wailing noise. Neither of the warmates had heard anything like it before. T'Chall looked nervously about, and slowly raised his blaster, taking aim at the female human before him. This was not personal. This was his job. He got no pleasure from killing these creatures, but he lost no rest over it either. It just was. The human female's body shook as she sobbed into the lifeless corpse of her daughter. Feck had saw the child dash for the safety of the small barn, but she was too slow. His blaster ripped into her, twisting her about and throwing her bloody, shredded body to the ground. That was when the human female began to make the unsettling noise as she ran to the child's still form lying in the mud. T'Chall was about to fire, but then the female stopped sobbing. She lovingly lay her offspring on the ground, and then looked up at the reptilian warrior standing before her. T'Chall froze. Her eyes, the human eyes, they were unlike anything he had ever seen. Red-rimmed and leaking fluid, they stared right into his own dark eyes. Humans were not supposed to be telepathic, but T'Chall saw her in their eyes the desire for his destruction. They glared with pure hatred right into his soul, her unwavering stare promising nothing less than death, a violent, painful death. So shocked was T'Chall, he never noticed that somehow she had stood up, and gripped in her right fist was a hunk of metal debris, no more than a pipe of some sort she must have picked up off the ground. It was only Feck's warning clicks that shook him out of his trance. T'Chall took a step back, away from the human, away from her eyes, and his booted heel caught on a root, and he fell backwards, his blaster falling from his grasp as he hit the dirt hard on his back, knocking the wind from him. He never stood up again. Feck witnessed the human female make a shrill hissing sound, turning to a roar of rage and fury. The warrior raised his own blaster to try and help his warmate, but the she-devil was on him too quickly. Feck could not shoot for the risk of hitting T'Chall. The human female, screaming the whole while, slammed the crude pipe into the face and head of T'Chall, over and over and over. Feck ran to help, turning the blaster around to use the butt of the weapon to knock her away. But as he drew close, he already knew it was too late. T'Chall's head was laid open, his face a bloody, unrecognizable blob of meat and bone. The split second of shock Feck felt seeing this warmate's corpse, face shattered, head split, leg still twitching, was his own undoing. She was on him, the human, the she-devil. Feck seemed to be in one slow motion. Everything was crystal clear. The human's rage-contorted face, the metal pipe, chunks of his warmate still dripping from the end. Her eyes. Oh, by the gods! Her eyes! In them there was no mercy. There was no quarter. She was just doing her job, and before Feck died, he knew. It may not be personal to him, but it sure as hell was personal to her. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.